I find myself in civil litigation, so more not necessarily the criminal stuff. I do touch upon it a little bit, but I do have people that I refer criminal law stuff to. And, that's once again the importance of collaboration. So, if something comes along that you can't deal with for whatever the reason might be, that there's a group of people that you work with, okay, this is something that you're pretty good at. So there you go, you take care of that work. So with me, I focus on, if you want a will drafted, so it's a general practice that I have. But if you want a will drafted, sure, come through. I'll help you with the will. I'll advise you, what to look out for. And, I've also got some connections in the financial services space who, because the problem that you have, and, this is what I experienced in practice again, was, you get people coming in who draw up wills, right? So it's like, okay, fantastic. You have a great thing on paper, but we don't speak about your liquidity in terms of how your finance look like. So the financial planning that's necessary to give effect to your wishes, and that's when you find situations of someone passes away and is busy holding his head. But you get a situation of someone passing away, and that's when families have to start selling assets because someone passed away, but they didn't make provision for what happens if I pass away. These are my wishes. I'd like my family to be covered in this way. So yeah.
And when that happens, normally you see that there's conflict.
You don't know. That is in the thing in the dust.
You look like you're talking.
Now. That's in the thing on the. It's everywhere. Most. More. Okay. Say more. Someone just died. And there's the house. So and this is powerful. You know that because someone just died. There's the house. Julle baklei oor die huis. They are fighting over the house, right? But they forget that, what's his name, debts also still.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, and once again, I'm all about educating people. So, what I found was that, and it's unfortunately in areas where people just don't have access to information. And that's where, we need to change the narrative in that respect. But the situation you're talking about, someone living in a family house and, let's say the parent dies and the house is in the parent's name. You don't report it to the master's office. You don't do anything. 10 years down the line, you decide, okay, you know what? I want to move somewhere else. Let me sell the house. Then you go to a conveyancer and it's like, no, but it's not in your name. Like, you understand you need to go report this estate at the master's office.
Estate tax.
There's all those things as well, depending on how much the estate is valued at. But, that the minimum time that takes is 6 months. So if you've got a purchaser for your place, it's highly probable that they won't be interested if it's going to take 6 months for that process, never mind the conveyancing process. So it takes too long, and these are things that people don't know about, and they find out when it's crunch time.
But you think it's very important for mother, for example, before she dies, to make things very, very clear? Because obviously, besides the will, a lot of parents, especially from, a lot of friends and family I know on the Cape Flats, the mother will leave the house and the mother will say, if there's one child in particular that doesn't have a place to stay, dan die huis is die kind se huis. There's always a place for my children to stay. But then the issue is the lazy one then ends up not having a place, and then the ones who do okay, they don't get anything because the lazy one maybe, for example, is staying at home. I'm not, and if you are the lazy one at home, I'm not talking about you, I'm just giving an example. So what in that case, do you think it's very important for those who have assets to understand and not do things ethically, do things fairly, because you don't do it like that, and then what happens is that you pass on, and now the children start fighting amongst each other, and it creates animosity, and that's not what the parent would want.
I think, look, and unfortunately, and like since we're speaking about wills and estates, That's where you see the ugly side of humanity. I mean, the claws come out, and it's just, and it's unfortunate, but apparently money tends to do that. But in the situation where mommy passes on without having a will, everyone. So let's just say she has 4 children and she's not married. Then everyone inherits equally, so equal portions. So what you're saying, practically speaking, if other kids have assets and there's one person who doesn't have an asset, it would be like, depending on how reasonable family members are as well. Because I think that's the bottom line. You get, families are like, no, it's okay, you can stay there, and then when you're back on your feet, we can sell the property. If no one's going to be there, then we can split the proceeds equally. But it depends on how connected the family is, because as I say, when these things happen, you rarely see the bad side of it.
So like with your one, Chad, I wanted to ask you, is your one the mommy left? We're saying all the time the mommy. Somebody left the will, or you talking about, they said everybody around the table, and they said, my children, there's 4 of you, and I want, if anything happens, you going to take the house, eh? He's going to take the house. Are you saying like they said, or there was a will? Are you talking about that?
I'm talking in the case where the mother says, or the granny, the wife passes away.
Says, or there is something.
Look, they didn't put it on paper.
So there isn't.
Yeah. There isn't something, but there is some form of verbal agreement. Because see, at the time when the will is drawn, or at the time when the conversation is had, it's talking about the future. It's saying that in the case that this happens, that my house is there, so one of my children does not go onto the sea. Because normally in a family, you always get the black sheep, or the one that's lazy, or the one that doesn't do as well as others. Sure. And me, if I'm a father, I want to make provision for that one.
Now,
but you don't know who that one's going to be. So in your will, you can't also be too specific to say, no, it needs to be equally shared among that 4. So, sometimes you, like, is there discretion?
I want another verbal thing. I'm really on this verbal thing.
Yes.
Okay. Let's sort out the verbal thing, and then we sort out if there is something in place. Because I'm very curious, because again, this happens, they sit around the table, and again, to educate, bro, I need to know these things. Because I need to explain these to people.
And you have kids one day, and you're going to leave a property to your kids, so you want to know what to do to not get into,
And I speak to a lot of people where, where it's like, they say, I'm living at home, it's a fight for the house and whatever. So the thing is, if there's no will in place, there was just a meeting. If everybody has a recollection of the meeting, where, what's the name said, you must have the house. However, you must make sure that Chad always have a place to stay.
Okay.
He's the youngest, and he must always have a place to stay. And here, in that meeting, and you were like, yes,
that's my house now.
I'm the captain. I'm the captain. And then you the eldest. Remember, you're the eldest. That's why they gave it to you. Youngest. And then I'm middle. And then I'm also like, okay, I just want my cut. Sell this thing.
Just started a job.
Because now what happens is going to be, then you also go, we sell this thing. But he must stay there. Because that's what was said. So now me and you go 2 against 1.
So you see, it's I don't even say it's a moot point. So if there's no will, then the person passes away intestate, which means that you've had no will. So there's a certain process that you follow. So let's just say that they weren't married and they have 3 children. So because there was no will, because a will is a document that proves what your wishes were. So if there was no will, then, the estate would be divided into 3, right, in terms of the law. But to just answer the specific point that you're saying, if that child who was left the property was really adamant that no, but the property is mine, it would then have to be a matter where you take it to court, because the master's office would say, where's the will? No will. Okay, everyone's getting everything equally, and the executor would need to assist with that process, or the executor's agent. And if that child is adamant, then you say, look, I'm getting the services of an attorney. You'd also need an advocate, because you'd go to the high court, and you'd need to show that this was this person's last wishes. But
Can't prove it.
The document, the document is important. Like the document, I cannot, underpin the importance of the document. It is very important to have that document. So if mommy does wish, and you pointed out that, must it be specific? Yes, so that we know what your intention is. So you can't have something where it's, okay, what does she mean here? Because we're not sure. And then it's a problem. And I've actually got a matter that I'm sitting with now where the will, I'm not too sure who drew up the will, but they made a bit of a blunder when drawing up the will, and the person whose will it is has subsequently passed away. And now as the attorney, I'm sitting with the problem, and I've got to run up and down to the master's office and say, look, here was the intention. Like, I've met with the family. This is what was intended. I know what's written in the document has an effect of X, but this person wanted Y. But it's not enough that, the family is like, this is what the person wanted. It's like, okay, we need to go to the master. And the master can come back and say, no, you got to do X. And then you'd have to go to court. And then these people would have to testify and be like, no, this is how we know that this person wanted it to be like this. And that you're incurring costs. And it's it's unnecessary costs.
Massive information out there. Now, because there was a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. There's a licht.